Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, I know I am crypto has been looking absolutely fantastic over the last month or so, right? We can see we have been getting recovery candles ever since after the first week of April. We can see that we recovered. We were at 74,500 practically. And then just a month later, we are back up to $97,000. See, that is how quick things can move and will continue to move over the next couple of months. Now, I'm not going to say every month we're going to move 20,000 for Bitcoin, right? There will be slower months. There will be a little bit of a pullback here and there. But generally speaking, we are looking to be pumping and creating new highs. Okay. We talked about it on Turbo, but I'll talk about it here a little bit too. Once crypto starts pumping, right? And this is mainly going to happen once we start creating new all-time highs, right? Right now, we're in the recovery stage, so there should still be, it should still be a little bit slower than, when we do start expanding, but the message is still the same and is still going to be very relevant for now and in the future. So if we look at something like gold, right? I use this on the turbo video, but I'm going to do this on this video too because not everyone watches the turbo videos, right? If we go to something like the 4-hour chart, we can see that here was roughly the 2024 high, right? This was the 2024 high. It hit pretty much $2,800. And then we can see, we dipped down. November, December was very slow. But kind of once January started, we were just recovering quickly, right? We were just recovering quickly. Any type of zone we were retesting, it was just not a massive pullback. It was always within a, given relative range, right? We can see boom, 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 never a full on pullback. All right, never full on pullback down to lower levels. And then after a certain point, especially kind of once we got to near the all-time highs and above, we kind of just kept retesting off of the relevant zones, right? Went up and down, we push up. This is the relevant zone. We can see we come back down here. We continue pushing up, right? We go up, we retest off here. This zone, boom, 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 boom. Sure, a little bit more sideways movement. Sure, a little bit of a liquidity sweep. Boom. But then overall, it just kind of always kept going up. Sure, there were times where we slowed down a little bit, right? Because after recovering and pumping practically very aggressively from, let's say, 2,600 up until almost 3,000, then we did have a decent pullback, right? We went from 2,956 to 2,833, right? Boom, bang, boom, sideways movement, whatever. But then, ladies and gentlemen, we can see once again, we start to get near the all-time highs. We went from pretty much 2,940 up until 3,165. Yes, there was a very quick correction. We dropped roughly like $200, but we can see we dropped quickly, we recovered quickly, and after that, we went from 2,980 practically all the way to 3,500. Why am I showing you this? It's because this is going to happen to Bitcoin. This is going to happen to altcoins. Once things start going, they will continue to go really, really quickly, right? Right now, for something like Bitcoin, we are in recovery stage. We did talk about how I believed we would be recovering during April, May, and June. And right now, we are exactly on track. I did say also in the beginning of April, I expected some kind of liquidity sweep. That's because, ladies and gentlemen, right, we can see we have this weekly candle here, which is also a nice monthly, which was also the 3-month candle. So we got swept, right, retested even more, and then just continued going up higher and higher. Now, I do expect things to slow down a little bit, right? We did think that there may be a little bit of a pullback down to 90K. We never really got that, right? We never really got that. All we did was just have a relevant zone, relevant range, roughly, let's just say from average of 93,000 up until 95,500. And then we kind of broke up almost to 98,000. We are slowing down just a little bit, right? I personally do want to see a nice fundamental pullback down to, 91, 92K. And then, once we have some kind of confirmation that we retested off this, which we probably won't be staying super long, then we'll just probably be bursting all the way up until near all-time highs. That is kind of what I roughly expect. But look, once this happens, or whatever happens in the near future, I do expect things to kind of speed up once we get to, I would say, roughly 100K, above 100K, especially if we pull back before getting to the 100K mark zone. Like, let's say roughly this area over here, right? Because it's actually decent range, right? We have actually decent support and resistance here. And once we kind of start getting above 100K, then that's going to definitely indicate that buyers are in. I mean, buyers have been in, but I mean, this is just more confirmation that buyers do want to push the price higher and higher. So let's just say, hypothetically, we get something like this, right? We go up a little bit, then we go back down, we push through, then we're probably going to speed up very, very quickly, right? We can see once Bitcoin even broke out, out of this zone, let's just say roughly from, 55K up until 70K. Once we broke out, there was no stopping, right? Sure, there was a little bit of consolidation for 3-4 days, roughly around 75 to 76K. But then we can see 2 days later, right, we went from 76K up until 90K. Again, we did start to slow down a little bit more. We did have to have more fundamental pullbacks. But then over the next, month or so, month to 2 months, we kind of hit like $110,000, right? We peaked at the middle of December. So, there was very, very strong momentum for a month and a half. When we talk about the strongest momentum, it lasted roughly 2 weeks. After that, yes, it did slow down, but momentum was still fairly strong for another month. So that is what I expect for crypto to be happening. That is what I expect for altcoins to be happening. And I'm warning you now because overall, generally speaking, right? Generally speaking, we do have coins at a very, very nice discounted price. Even Caspa under 10 cents. Yes, it did hit, 8.4, 8.5, Render at $4.70. At one point it's already 5.23, right? It may come back down to, lower levels of $4, $3.80, depending on if Bitcoin pulls back or not. But overall, even right now, these prices are really, really good. And we can see if we go to something like, others dominance, we can see if we remove the text, the others dominance is fairly low, right? This is generally low, right? We can see if we go to on the monthly even, we can see that last time it peaked at almost 20%. And during the first altcoin season, the best altcoin season, in my opinion, right, it peaked at almost 18%. So we can see how much lower we are. And we can see how the last few months have really, really been slowing down in this area. And I'm telling you, once we start recovering, we won't stop. We can see it was kind of like the same thing here. Altcoins dominance had the last dip. And then just for a couple months straight, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 5 months. At one point, yes, the dominance did go down here. But for 5 months, we were just practically 4.5 months. We were going up, up, up. Boom, altcoin season happened, right? Things got reset. And then again, at the end of the year, right, roughly around November to December, January time, depending on the coin, depending on the narrative, once again, we had a second altcoin season. So, but we can see the first pump was 4.5 months of just straight green, right? If we go to something like, others, if I pull this up very quickly, others, this is the market cap for altcoins outside the top 10. Okay. So not including Ethereum, not including all these other big boys, we can see, right? This is what happened last time around. Once we fully got out of the zone, we were just pumping hard. We were pumping hard for a few short months. We peaked. Once again, we dipped. Second pump again happened. And right now, we are going to be consistently going up a little bit aggressive. There may be a little bit of pullbacks because we are somewhere in this stage right here, right? We are somewhere in this stage right here. So, there was some up and down momentum. It was a little bit aggressive, but not super. But once it starts expanding, it is going to be too late to be buying for these very, very nice prices. So, some of you guys, I know just how are holding. Some of you guys are looking to be buying. Obviously, I'm not a financial advisor. If you do have the mindset of, hey, I'm going to be looking to be cashing out in the next 6 to 8 months, most likely, even if coins go down right now, generally speaking, ladies and gentlemen, prices are fantastic. Okay. Prices are fantastic, right? You got to remember, we expect a lot of money to be entering this market. If we go to the total market cap, some people expect that we could be going to the 9 to 12 trillion in terms of total market cap. Now, for me, I'm playing it more conservative. I'm going to see how we react off the 6 trillion, right? But I do think we probably will on a highly, probable level peak around the 7 to 8 trillion mark, right? Of course, we can go higher and we might, even maybe go lower. But I really do think once momentum will start coming here, money will be printing. We know the liquidity is flowing into crypto over the next few weeks and months very, very heavily. So I do not expect anything to be changing. I expect there to be a lot of money. And you also have to remember that a couple of billion of dollars will move the market decently for crypto or move it a couple percent. You gotta remember something like stocks, for stocks to go down a couple percent, globally, that's trillions of dollars lost. So literally, something like the stock market has way more money involved, like way more money. We're talking about like couple hundred times more. So if some of that money starts flowing into here, if some of the big boys start coming into here, the country start buying this, getting to this couple of trillion market cap is not going to be the most impossible thing in the world, because you got to remember there's way more money in forex. There's way more money. There's way more money in stocks. So yeah, crazy, crazy times, people. Crypto is still super, super small compared to some of these other bigger boys. But yeah, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.